Good evening. Welcome to Class 8, Fixing Errors in Family Data, in the Taming the FamilySearch Goliath class series presented by West Richland Stake, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Washington State. We hope that you've been enjoying this series and that you will find this class tonight especially helpful, particularly if you've been working in FamilySearch for a while and are discovering that some of the data for your individual families needs to be corrected and improved, and you're a little frustrated because you don't quite know how to go about that. This is my favorite class to teach, incidentally, and it's one of my favorite skills, so I hope that I can do it justice and provide the information to you in such a way that it's meaningful and accessible. In our previous class, Class 7, we covered LDS family ordinances. We talked about their purpose, who can reserve them and when, strategies that we might use to find our ancestors who have not yet been offered the ordinances, how we actually reserve an ordinance and print what we call a temple card, and the tools that are accessible to us through FamilySearch to help us manage our family ordinances project when we've got many names we're trying to work on simultaneously. In tonight's class, Class 8, we're going to introduce strategies that will help you identify possible errors in provided data for a family group. And we're going to strive to help you learn how to correct the 5 most common relationship errors in family data. It's hard to believe that there are really so few of them because you see them in so many different guises, but when it comes right down to solving them, there are actually only about 5 that occur frequently. And finally, we're going to offer a systematic process for fixing multiple errors in data for a family group and suggest when not to use them. This is a real blended family, a family of spouses who had been married before and had now married each other, and their children. It's a real family, all one family group that I found in FamilySearch in my family tree. If you have taken the trouble to download the handouts for this class, which I very highly recommend, since then you will have several of our tools on full-page sheets instead of on half-page sheets, you will find that there is an additional handout related to this page. I'm sorry, I was thinking that I was offering that to you next, but I'm not. I was basically giving you this page simply so that you can see that a family can look perfectly normal when you first notice it in FamilySearch. And then you begin, things start popping off the page at you. Here's Charles Franklin Berkey, and here he is again with a different father. In fact, here's Eliza Berkey, and here she is over here again as a Hancock instead of a Berkey. Oh my gosh, and here she is again. And here's Pleasant E. Berkey, as a boy, and here's Pleasant Eugenia Hancock as a girl. What is going on with this family? One of the little gifts that I have in FamilySearch is to look at a family page and say, oh, there's something wrong here. We need to fix this. And people who've just gone to the same page with me say, I don't see it. I don't see what you're looking at. How did you find that? That's what I want to teach you tonight. So our first skill of 3 skills that we're going to share with you tonight is how to discover problems in existing family data. These are the things I look for, and it actually took me a while to write these down because I hadn't ever taken the logic out of my mind and to put it on a piece of paper before. FamilySearch, since I created this in 2016, FamilySearch has wisely come out with a message system that gives you red messages in the upper right-hand corner of your people pages because the couple's marriage doesn't make sense, for example, or because a child is born after one of the parents died, or there may be possible duplicate children in the family. So FamilySearch is trying to make it easier for people to recognize errors in their family data using many of the same tools that I'm suggesting to you here. This does include a few more. For example, does a child have more than one set of parents? And so I offer this to you as a tool to use when you see a family group while you're learning to make these questions intuitive to yourself, so they just come to you automatically when you look at a family group. This one I would like to call special attention to. Do the children's birth locations make sense? Start with the parents' marriage location. Where were the parents in the 1850 to 1880 and 1900 to 1940 censuses? Where the parents were, the kids should have been born. Now that's not absolutely true if you had a really highly mobile family, but if you've got a family that stayed in one location for a while, say they were in Nevada, it doesn't make sense for them to suddenly pop up with a bunch of kids from New York, for example. It's possible that in that case someone has incorrectly merged two families, and in this family you've got 13 plus kids, which is highly unlikely, not impossible, but highly unlikely, some of whom are not actually children of your family. So coming back to this question, to this family page, using those Logic 101 questions that I just offered you on the previous screen, how many errors do you actually see? I recommend that you spend a few minutes with this outside of this class, rather than taking time for you to do that now. But what I'd like to share with you is these are the errors that I ultimately saw after working on this family for about 4 hours one day. If she was born in 1862, how come her parents were married a decade later? This child also was born before these parents were married. And she's down here now with a family that actually has what we call a fictitious spouse. That is, there is no father in this family group. She's a girl here. She's a boy here. No spouse. I had to actually look at his person page in order to discover that it's really talking about March 1872. Well, these parents were married in August of 1872. That might not be that uncommon in our time, but in that time, that was a big family scandal and very unlikely. Here he's a son. Here he's a father. He's a husband of the woman who is here, his mother. He's born in 1860, she's born in 1839. How likely is it that she married a man who was 21 years younger than she was? Okay, so that's kind of a superficial way to go through those, but if you would be willing to really look at that chart and start looking at your family groups, you may discover that there are errors you had not previously suspected that you might want to address. And so our next skill is to learn how to fix the 5 most common relationship challenges that we discover in our family groups. These are the 5 relationships that I'm talking about. In adult relationships, how do we create a relationship between 2 adults? And how do we delete a relationship between those 2 adults? In child-family relationships, there are 3 common challenges. We want to add a child to a set of parents. We want to move a child between 2 sets of parents. Or we want to delete the relationship of a child to a set of parents. As you know, FamilySearch very wisely made it extremely difficult for us to delete any person in the database. They may not be a member of your family, but they're a member of somebody's family. And they may not belong to your family group, but they still should remain in the database so that eventually they can be connected to the right family. And so we don't delete people in FamilySearch, we delete relationships. Among your printed handouts is 2 full-size sheets that look like this. And these are probably the most important thing you're going to get from this class. The second page looks like this. If you have these handouts before you, I would like to suggest that you make a couple of handwritten notes on them, possibly in pencil if that would be convenient for you, because I want to relate these topics now to those 5 relationship challenges that I was just describing, to make sure that the terminology doesn't become a barrier. Under Add a Spouse, you might perhaps write up here, for example, create a relationship between 2 adults, because that's what you're doing here. And I noticed when I started going through these that I had actually overlooked an important one, which is delete a relationship between 2 adults. And there is space enough, if you wish, to write this down here. You might say, delete a relationship between 2 adults. The steps are, number 1, move the children to the correct parent, and then 2, delete the parent's relationship. We're going to actually do this, don't panic. I wanted to just let you know that your sheet is incomplete and that it fails to offer that. Okay, here is your add a child to a set of parents information. This is the section that talks about deleting the relationship of a child to a set of parents. I want you to begin thinking of parents as not individual people, but as a set of parents, so that you won't be afraid to delete a set of parents if one of those parents is still on your person page married to someone else. You're not deleting any people, you're just deleting a set of parents and their relationship to specific children. And here in this section, we are talking about one of our 5 most common relationship challenges, which is move a child between 2 sets of parents. Move a child between 2 sets of parents. 2 existing sets of parents, I guess, is even better terminology. Okay, so these are your gift for participating in this class. And we're going to use those same strategies to actually practice doing this. I've found out how hard it is to create a fictitious family and FamilySearch that includes all the attributes you need them to be. So I now have new respect for people in FamilySearch who have offered us tutorials on these kinds of things. Since you are now armed with these 2 new tools, Logic 101 for family historians, that helps you recognize possible errors in your family data, and secondly, fix family relationships in FamilySearch, that 2-page handout we were just looking at, which includes step-by-step guides to fix data errors in family data one relationship at a time. I want to go now to FamilySearch and actually begin using these tools with simplified family data that's going to hopefully allow us to see the step-by-step guides in action. And we're going to actually address each of the 5 most common issues. I'm going to go to FamilySearch. No, that's not FamilySearch. Here we are. Okay. Now, for this pretend data that I created in FamilySearch, as I said, I tried to make this pretty comprehensible with very short introduction to the data. So what instead of calling her Christina Kent, I called her Grandma Christina Kent to make it very clear to everyone that this is supposed to be my grandma. And Grandma Christina Kent is in the database. Other people have entered her. She doesn't have a husband yet. Obviously, she was married to my grandpa. They do know that she had a father whose name was Joseph Kent, and they say that he was married to a woman named Kathy Smith. They also have a spouse who says no name at all and no ID number. This is what they call a fictitious spouse, as I've mentioned previously. You notice that this set of parents has children because they're the preferred set of parents. Let's find out if this set of parents also has children. I wish that they would display them all the time, but they make us click this button here. So we'll click the words Show All. And now we can see that this relationship also has children, one of whom is also listed up here in this relationship. The other is my grandmother's sister named Martha Kent. So let's see what else they've figured out about my family that I might perhaps want to look at. Let's start by going to Martha, see if they know whether or not she married, because I've never been able to discover that myself. And we'll see that no, they don't have a spouse for her either. I think my grandmother told me that she had never married, but what I am concerned by is that there are 3 sets of parents shown here for her. Let's show all the children of these relationships to see what else they've got messed up here. Obviously, she didn't have 3 biological sets of parents. They're saying that she was the daughter of my great-grandpa Joseph Kent, which is correct, but somebody has also concluded, perhaps by merging someone named Martha Kent into my Martha Kent, that her parents were James Michael Kent and Miranda Martin, which is absolutely incorrect. My grandma was born in Iowa and died in Washington State. She was never in Kansas. And so my first challenge is going to be to remove her from this relationship. And this is what we would call deleting the relationship of a child to a set of parents, a set of parents. To accomplish this is really very easy. FamilySearch makes these techniques very accessible. I have the choice of just removing this father, which would leave the daughter still attached to this mother. That's not what I want because she is not the correct mother. Or I could do the opposite. I could remove Miranda and leave her attached to James if he was the correct father. He is not. So what I want to do is to remove this child from both of these people simultaneously, and to do that I remove her here. And I say, I have reviewed the relationships, remove these parents, as opposed to replacing these parents. I'm just going to remove them because my grandma's sister Martha is already connected to the right parents, I believe. I'm going to remove those parents. I always want to leave a reason. This is my great aunt. I know these are not her parents from, geez, I can't spell who tonight, huh? R-E-N, from my grandmother's family Bible, period. It's always a good idea to provide any evidence that you possess as part of your description, because the person who submitted those 2 parents and thinks they have found a child is going to want to know how come you removed that child from them. And you're trying to discourage them from adding her to those parents again. Okay, so now my grandmother's sister, Martha Kent, only has 2 sets of parents. Let's once again show the kids. And this set of parents doesn't have a mother. This actually happens fairly frequently. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's one of the most common challenges that we see in family relationships, is that someone has started with a child and added them to a set of parents, which unfortunately almost always results in the parents being only one of the spouses. I think of this like a child is floating in the ocean drowning. Their 2 parents are standing on the edge of the boat reaching down to pull them out of the water, and only one of the parents can grasp the child's hand at a time. That's basically what's going on here. If this was the correct father, we could simply add the correct mother here by searching for her by ID number and correct this. But there is a better way to handle it in this instance, and we're going to find it. So let's go back to my grandmother. We will fix her sister in just a moment, now that we've eliminated that totally incorrect set of parents. And let's see if one of the steps that I'm going to invite you to always do early on in your process of fixing a family is to make sure that you know how many times each of the parents was married according to the data in FamilySearch. Because if you're missing one of those marriages, the chances are you're not going to be able to solve all of the children's problems. So let's look at Grandpa. Just make sure that this has all of his marriages, because right now the person I'm focused on is Grandma, and all I'm seeing is marriages that she is listed as a child in. But what about Grandpa? How many marriages does he have? Oh, he's actually got 4 marriages. Let's show the kids. Here's this lady named Jessica. Who's Jessica Jefferson? My grandma never told me anything about a Jessica Jefferson in Nevada. What are the odds that if she was born in 1832, she married my grandfather, who was 28 years younger than herself? Not real good, would you think? We have seen this one before. This is an unknown wife we haven't seen before. And here is a wife named Kathy. Let's see. Well, at this point, I would create myself a little chart. I actually would create myself a little roadmap that would tell me from the information I possess what is correct, and then from that point, how I get there from what's in FamilySearch. And because Grandpa Joseph Kent is the man who has all the marriages that I'm going to have to try to fix, he is what I call my key person. When you start wandering around in a family like this and bouncing around between the relatives, it's really easy to forget how to get to the person you're really trying to fix. In this case, my key person is Joseph Kent, and if I make myself a note of his ID number, whenever I start feeling a little bit wobbly and lost, I can go back to that ID number and reorient myself and get back on track. That's your key person. So let's see what's really going on here. I know that Martha was really a daughter of Joseph Kent and Kathy Smith, so she should be up here. Let's move her there. It is possible to substitute to add the mother here, but then I'm going to end up with this situation still existing for the other girl. What I would prefer to do instead is simply to move this girl from this set of parents to the correct set of parents, leaving her still safely attached here so that there's no way I can accidentally disconnect her from my family and have her wandering around the database without any parents. Once I get her into the correct family, I will remove her from the incorrect family. So it's really a 2-step process. First part is I'm going to copy her ID number and add her to this family. I'm going to copy her ID number, copy, and add her to this family as a child here using her ID number, find by ID number. Paste in her ID number, say find her. Yep, that's my grandma's sister. Add her. Now, what have I accomplished? Now, when I show all, I see that Grandma's sister Martha is now connected to the right set of parents, Joseph Kent and Kathy Smith. My grandpa was married twice, and this was his second marriage. And I still got her connected down here to this fictitious relationship, and so now that I've safely tucked her into the right family, I can remove her from this incorrect relationship. And to do that, Once again, I click on the little pencil icon to edit her appearance. You notice that I have to scroll down a little bit to see that whole little display that comes up. I simply want to remove her from this fictitious set of parents. Not remove her just from dad, although that would work, but if there was a mother there, so for example it said unknown first wife, then I would still have the problem of Martha being connected to unknown first wife. So I've just gotten in the habit of removing her from a set of parents. I'll remove her. And the reason I can do this is that I've already got her connected to the other set of parents, so there's no stress involved here. And the correct information to type here, fictitious parents, no mother. This is according to the original training I received in FamilySearch in their tutorials. Fictitious is unfortunately a tricky word for a lot of people to spell. And another way that you might say it is incorrect parents, no mother, or wrong parents, no mother. But you need to say something in this box before you click next. Okay, now where we are. Once again, we've got the parents listed, but the kids are not listed for any but the preferred relationship, so let's list them all. Now, Grandpa Joseph still has a fictitious relationship, but my aunt, my grandma's sister Martha, is no longer part of that fictitious relationship. How do I make this fictitious relationship go away for my grandpa? I don't have anybody here to delete or to remove from the relationship. What you discover is that this child is actually holding this fictitious relationship together. There is no marriage here. There is no button to click. This child is the cause of this fictitious relationship because of the way she was entered in the database. To get rid of this fictitious relationship, all I have to do is disconnect Grandma. Let's make sure that Grandma is already tucked into another family so I can still find her. She's right up here, unfortunately with the wrong mother, but she's still connected to Grandma in a different relationship, so I can safely remove her from this fictitious relationship. And I'm going to do the same process. Remove this set of parents, fictitious parents, no mother. Oops. Remove. Okay, let's see what we've got now. Once again, I'm going to show all to see where the kids are. Now you might be wondering, how come I've kept this unknown first wife right here? That's because he did have an unknown first wife, and she was the mother of my grandma Christina. I happen to possess their marriage record. And so after entering their marriage record as a source for Grandpa Joseph, I'm going to change this woman from an unknown first wife to the right name. That is a better process than disconnecting her from this man and adding a new woman, because you don't want any more of these unknown first wives floating around in the database than is absolutely necessary, since sooner or later somebody is going to have to try to figure out what to do with all that, those little minuscule fragments of people. So let's just convert her to the real person. I'll go to her person page. Her name was Denise Jones. Denise. Actually, this is my I'm going to put great-grandma over here. You understand, I hope, that you would never put great-grandma in your family data in FamilySearch. But may I share with you that as I was working on this process to create this class for you tonight, it occurred to me, if I'm straightening out a family group, it might make sense to put some titles into people's names so you can keep track of who you're related to, as long as you then go back and remove them before you walk away from the database after you're done. So this is my great-grandma. Great-grandma, I think that'll work. Denise, what's her last name? Jones. Save. And she was actually born in If this was real data, of course I would put the whole date in here. I'm simplifying this for these purposes. 65. She was born in Iowa. And we will standardize that as we do based on the information in one of our previous classes. Okay, so now great-grandpa is married to my great-grandpa. Well, actually, he's not yet. Until I give them a marriage, they are two people without a couple relationship. So what we're doing right now is to create a relationship between two adults that we have added. Let's give them a marriage. They were married. I have their marriage license, and I'm bragging about it and putting it on FamilySearch so everybody who doesn't possess it can have a copy of it. Standardize that too. Go to the bottom of the screen. You actually have to hit this blue save button when you add a marriage or a divorce or a common law marriage or something before it's saved to the person's database, to the person's person page, excuse me. Now we'll close this and we'll click someplace outside of this big gray box to make the big gray box go away. Okay, now they are a couple. They have a relationship. Who is our key person? It's Joseph Kent. So we'll go back to him again. Now, I've got, let me show the kids. I still got Martha linked to two different women. And in fact, that is possible in this database, although, of course, it would only make sense if she was the daughter of the first wife and then she was raised by a stepmother who was the man's second wife. But you can, I'll just point out to you that you can actually change the relationship type, say, of a woman from biological to something else by this process. Let me go through that again so you'll see it. I can say, yes, she was actually raised not by her biological mother, but by the second wife of this man. And she was a stepchild of that woman, or she was an adopted child of that woman, for example. So I will cancel that because that's not true in this case. I just wanted to make sure that you knew how to do that. In this case, though, since Kathy was actually the second wife of my grandfather, it doesn't make any sense to list my grandmother in this relationship when she was, no, excuse me, I've got that backwards. She was the daughter of Denise. Christina was the daughter of Denise, this woman. And so now what I need to do is move grandma from this set of parents to this set of parents. And I think what I will try to do this time in order to show it to you is to substitute the mothers. The father is already the same. See how he's bold-faced, which means it's his person page I'm on. But when that is true, it also means that the ID number is the very same. And this process would not work if his ID number was not the same already. I can't substitute the mother without messing up the fathers if they're not already the same. So let me just show you this thing and not try to beat it to pieces here. Let's remember Denise's ID number because we're going to need that when we say who her mother really was. Let's go to my grandmother and we'll go to her change parents little pencil icon. And instead of removing her and pasting her up here like we did before, what I'd like to do is simply remove or replace this mother. Instead of saying remove this person, I'm going to replace this person with the correct mother, who is also married to Joseph Kent. So I'm going to replace this person by the ID number, paste it in there. It's going to give me a chance to say, is that who you mean? If I say, see, The problem with this strategy, and it used to work just beautifully, I don't know what has gone wrong, but in the last few months I've noticed it thinks I'm trying to create a relationship when in fact I'm just trying to choose that woman for a mother. So if you see this message, this darn thing isn't working right yet. Let's cancel this and go the old route. We will instead remove grandmother from Kathy. No, I'm not really happy with that. Wait a minute. Let's go the old route. I'm a lot more comfortable not risking the chance that I'm going to lose my grandmother somewhere in this database. Let's do the cut and paste thing. We'll say, Grandma, I'm going to copy your ID number and I'm going to add you as a child to this family. Sure is a shame that they've lost that. I think people were struggling to correctly use that replace feature, and it was so handy. I hope that they will choose to find a way to make it possible for people to become familiar with how that works, because it was really a very powerful tool. Okay, so now once again, as before, we've got Grandma Christina Kent in two different families. She is not the daughter of this family. These people married in 1890. My grandma was born in 1883. She is the daughter of this relationship, of a marriage that was actually initiated in 1880. So now that I've got her securely tucked into her family, I can remove her safely from this family without hurting anyone. And I'm going to do so now. I'm going to click that. I'm going to remove her from her set of parents by clicking this button, remove. This time my message is a little simpler. I just say incorrect mother. Now nobody could have seen that before because they didn't know who this man's first wife was, and they didn't know when they got married, so they had no way of knowing that my grandmother, Christina, was in the wrong family group. What do we got now? Oh, we still got this challenge up here, don't we? Grandpa was never married to a lady named Jessica Jefferson from Nevada. This is obviously an error that has been created by someone who was looking for a husband for a lady named Jessica Jefferson named Joseph Kent, and they probably merged our two Joseph Kents and in the process gave him a wife that didn't belong to him. Unfortunately, in this case, I have no idea who Jessica Jefferson is or who she really married. I have no other listed children here that I need to keep with her before I separate her from my family, so the best thing for me to do is probably to remove my grandmother from this couple. She's already down here nice and safe, so I can do that. I will remove her from that incorrect couple. Remove. Simply say incorrect mother. Show all. So now there are no children that I'm affecting by the decision to separate this couple. That's a very important thing to keep in mind. Lots of times when two families have been incorrectly merged, some of the children need to stay with the spouse that you're separating from your family, or they become orphans in the database. For example, if there were still 3 children here that were from Nevada and probably belonged to Jessica Jefferson, you wouldn't want to separate those kids from each other or from her. In which case, before I separated her from great-grandpa, I would be most likely to give her a fictitious spouse, unknown first husband. Move those children to that relationship so that they would stay with her and then separate her from my grandfather. I don't have to do that here, but that's an important point to pass on. Please try not to create orphans in the database whenever you can possibly anticipate that children you're separating from a family or a parent and children are actually related together in some way. It was so much easier for someone else to find them as a group than to try to find them as individuals. Okay, we're now ready to separate Joseph Kent from his wife Jessica, who was never his wife at all. And to do that, this is called deleting a relationship between 2 adults. I'm going to once again edit the couple. There's no point in moving this. That's going to go away all by itself when I take the next step, which is to remove Jessica as a wife of my great-grandfather. I'm simply going to now notice I'm not deleting her. She still exists in the database. She's still somebody else's relatives, probably has had some ordinances done, and therefore it's very important that we preserve those. But what I am going to do is remove her from my family group because she is not a relative in this group. Incorrect. Wife was never married to Joseph Kent, I can't read that writing very well, LRHGVV3, who never lived in Nevada. He is my great-grandfather. This establishes that I am close enough to this relationship that I probably know more about these people than the average researcher, and I am being very cautious to make sure that he's not connected with incorrect spouses. I also want to include in my message the person that I'm removing from this woman, because otherwise the only way they would have a chance to find it is to go back in the recent changes and try to skip down through all the changes that have been made to this woman to try to figure out who I separated her from. Why not give them a head start? Let them look at them and say, oh, yeah, that didn't make sense. That's not the right Joseph Kent. And then it's their burden to find the correct Joseph Kent. But at least I have given them a head start. Remove. This is simply a matter of courtesy between contributors to FamilySearch. Okay, so what have we ended up with here? Let's show the kids again. We've got my great-grandpa married to my great-grandma Denise with my grandmother, and then with Grandpa's second wife, Kathy Smith, his second daughter, Martha Kent, who is a sister to my grandmother. So far, so good. Let's go back to Martha Kent and see if she's still got any challenges that we need to address. No, she's just got the one set of parents now. She doesn't have any incorrect spouses, so she's all straightened out. Let's go back to Grandpa. He's my key person. Let's check Kathy and make sure that she doesn't have any correct spouses. This is the proper process. You actually check each individual to see if there are any lingering challenges that you have inadvertently overlooked. Let's go back to Grandpa, look at his other wife, see if she has any lingering challenges we need to address. Denise, person. No, she's nice and clean now. Let's go to my grandmother. And see that the only thing I still need to do is to connect her to her husband. And I have previously found him. His name was Mark Jefferson, and I have looked for his ID number, so that is one way we could find it. But I will actually look him up in the database. I'm going to add or find a spouse. His name was Mark Jefferson. He is deceased. He was born in I don't know when he was born. According to my notes here, I didn't come up with that. Let's see if we can find this dude without having to use his ID number to locate him. Mark Jefferson. We're looking for someone with KWT in the bottom. There are a lot of Mark Jeffersons. KWT. No, it would take me a while to find him that way. So what I'm going to do is different. I'm going to add him by his ID number, which is LRHGKWT. Find. Is this him? Yep, that's my grandpa. Add him. Oh, see, I outsmarted myself. If I'd put him in as grandpa, I would have found him. Okay, so I have just created a couple relationship, but they're not yet married. They're just two people in a box. Let's give them a marriage. Add an event. Put in the date of the event, which I'm going to streamline as 1918 in Utah. I always wanted some relatives from Utah, and now I've got some. By gosh, you can't hardly be LDS without having relatives in Utah. And I don't. Mine are all someplace else. Okay, so now I have got Grandma all straightened out. I've added Grandpa. If I wanted to add a child to this relationship, I would do it from here. I would not start with the child and then search for the parents, which is going to give you that fictitious parents cluster that I have shown you how to correct. Grandpa is now straightened out. Nice and clean. And he's got his 2 daughters with his 2 wives and no hangers-on. I don't know who his parents are, unfortunately, but when I find them, I'll be able to add them. So it took us, what, maybe 10 minutes to fix that whole mess, and now we can sleep tonight knowing that those families are correctly entered in FamilySearch and their ordinances can be performed correctly. So let us go back to our PowerPoint slides and pick up from the present slide. I don't know what that's all about. No. Let's from the current slide. There we go. This is where we left off. Skill number 3. Now that was a relatively small group of family members. It may have seemed a little daunting to you if you are really pretty new to this whole process of fixing things. But you will find that no matter how big the family relationship challenge, how many generations are involved, how many kids are screwed up, those very same processes that we've just gone through to fix those 5 common relationship challenges are really all you need to fix almost all of even the most convoluted, what I call bird's nests in FamilySearch that can and have taken me 8 hours to clean up sometimes. And so I want to offer you a new tool. This is a tool that summarizes my several years of hands-on experience in untangling bird's nests without disturbing the eggs in the clutch. It's called The Process, and it helps us to understand a systematic process to fix multiple errors in a group of families that are related. But first we need some caveats. We need to know when not to attempt to fix a family group, and that's what this slide is for. The church is very adamant. Please do not try to fix a family to whom you are not related. In other words, if you stumble into a family group just by sheer accident and say, oh my gosh, this is a mess, I can fix this. And then you stand back and say, but I'm not actually related to them, am I? No, it would be better if you did not do that. In fact, FamilySearch is quite adamant about that in their training. Please do not attempt to fix someone else's family's group. That's their responsibility. Also, do not attempt to fix a family group for whom no useful records are available. If you happen to have marriage licenses or birth certificates or death certificates or something in your possession that might not be available online, feel free to add it to the database and attach it to the family group so that whoever does clean up their data will have some tools to use. But for those of us who are working beyond the 1840 or so year, way back further before there were good records, if you can't find any records to support the changes you're making, it's best to just leave it alone. We don't tear up existing family data, especially when family ordinances have been completed, without sources to support our changes. We also don't attempt to fix a prominent family group that includes LDS or government leaders. I have a ward member in my ward who is directly related to Brigham Young through his first wife, and she says, no, they've got this wrong. I know that this is wrong. and we attempted to look at it and to see if we could address it. And the data has been so messed up by a multitude of people who had good intentions and thought they knew what they were doing, that FamilySearch has actually frozen it. And the library historians in Salt Lake City are searching for records as a basis to fix it, and they will leave it frozen when they get done so it won't get messed up again. So if you're related to a prominent LDS or a government leader and you go into FamilySearch and find that it's pretty well messed up, you can assume with probably 99% success that someone has reported that to FamilySearch, and they have a team of people who are trying to get to searching for actual records to document what should be in FamilySearch and what needs to be separated from it. Once again, though, when they get through with it, they're going to freeze it so that they never have to go through that again, because it's a painful process to clean up a family group that's really been chopped to pieces. And I suggest as entry-level folks who are trying to learn how to correct family data, that if you look at a family group and it just looks way too messed up for your present level of experience fixing family relationships, you simply walk away from it or call in bigger guns. Try to find someone maybe in your ward who has a lot of experience doing this, perhaps a family history consultant who has actual knowledge, maybe a librarian at a family history library. You might contact FamilySearch themselves and ask for help. There is actually a feature in FamilySearch that will permit you to talk to someone who has a lot of experience and might be willing to go to your family group and help you straighten it out. But if you're not experienced enough to take it on yourself, it's very easy to inadvertently make it worse rather than better. And for that reason, I say don't attempt it if you don't feel you're ready yet in terms of your experience level. Here's the process that I suggest. Now, these are not necessarily step-by-step guides. Instead, this is the essence of what I have learned. Use your Logic 101 handout tips to discover relationships of children and of parents in a family group that are apparently incorrect. You won't always need that Logic 101 handout, but it's a good thing to go back and refresh your mind once in a while with some of the steps you might be missing to check while you're looking at a family group. Then before you begin hacking away at it with your hacksaw, you might want to make yourself a little roadmap. This is basically a little chart you create. I wish that I had been able to give you my chart. I couldn't figure out how to load it in the PowerPoint slide, unfortunately. It's a pretty messy little thing, and it doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to be understandable to you. But basically what you want to do is to write down each person in the group whose relationships don't make sense and assign them a number so you can work on them systematically, one person at a time. And I'm going to very strongly recommend, and I state that down here, that you always fix the parents first if you can, and then the children, because many of the children's problems will go away when you fix duplicate parents, for example. Always, always choose a key person to return to when you get lost in one of these big clusters of incorrect data. Otherwise, you will wander around in a morass for hours, and maybe you'll stumble back on the person you started with, but you will always find yourself better off if you can go back to a person you recognize and say, oh, I got kind of far out there. It's a good thing that I can go back to a person I recognize and start from this place where I know how to get to Plan B. Remember how important it is to view all marriages. Remember in that big family group we started this discussion with, I didn't take my own advice. I thought I had discovered all of the parents' marriages, but in fact I missed one, and that's the one I needed to explain one of the children. She was actually the child of the marriage I had missed. And I spent hours looking for that, trying to figure out who that child belonged to before I got smart enough to click on one of the parents' pages and realize that he had been married before. Save yourself that grief. When you're creating your roadmap, make sure that you're actually noticing all of the marriages of the partners in that family. Then use your Fix Family Relationships handout for one person on your roadmap, addressing each incorrect relationship one at a time. Always fix the parents first. Standardize names, dates, and locations. I got to say that twice. Standardize names, dates, and locations in every person page you touch. And check carefully for duplicate people, because there may be other people wandering around in the database who need to be merged into this family and can also have their data corrected and prevent people from duplicating ordinances unnecessarily. To fix some relationships, you may definitely need to learn more from records or from other researchers, ideally descendants. In one of those children in that family group, I could not figure out who one of those kids belonged to, because her birth was apparently about the time one of the men died and before the mother remarried to another man. And I went into Ancestry.com and discovered her actual birth date, which told me that she was born a couple of months after her father died. I would never have known that if I hadn't been able to find a family tree created by descendants of that woman who were able to tell me her actual birth date and location. I actually found a birth record for her which backed up what they were telling me, but I wouldn't have known how to search for it had I not gotten the information they shared. Once you've done all that you can, you may still have some information that you simply can't resolve. You don't know where to go from there. And in that case, what I suggest is that you simply leave a warning message for other researchers who go to that person's page. You might do this in the life sketch section at the top of the person page. For example, you might say, I'm unable to determine the correct mother for this child because of such and such situation. If you know her mother, would you please share your sources and make the correction in the person data so that we can get her sealed to the right parents. Okay, so those are my tips on the process I follow, and I assure you they will save you many hours if you choose to use them. What I'm coming back to that same family that I am so proud to have been part of fixing, because they were sure whacked out. My first tip on that strategy on that list of strategies that I really want to emphasize for you is find the key person who leads you back to all the relationships that appear to be screwed up. In this case, it was the mother. In the case of the situation of my supposed grandparents that we worked through on FamilySearch, it was the grandfather. It doesn't matter who it is, but it's the person who has all the marriages. Almost always it's the person who has all the marriages. So if I'm working away on Eliza Ann Berkey and I can't figure out where in the heck I go to find the page that's got all the marriages on it, I can come back to my chart and see that my key person is Sarah Catherine Daly, and whap, I'm right back where I belong. The second thing is to number the challenges that you're actually going to address. So that you address them one by one. That helps you eliminate that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by this process. If you say, I'm going to fix this Charles Franklin Berkey kid, and then I'm going to find out when this couple was married, because I need to know that to know if Josiah was his dad or if James was his dad. Well, James can't be his dad because James is a son of the same mother who produced Charles Catherine Berkey. So I know right away that he's not a member of this family. He's got to be a member of this family. But that makes it simpler for me to say, oh, I can do this. And it makes it possible for you to believe that this is possible when you start out a great big project like this. And then using your step-by-step guide for each of those individual issues that we were going to address for those kids, we would simply decide, what do I have to do for person number one? Well, I've got to remove that child from one incorrect parent. I've got to add an estimated marriage date and location. Or if I can find a record, that would be even better. But if I can't, I can guess. I've got to remove one of the kids from a set of parents. I don't have to read all of these to you. You're capable of doing that. But the one I do want to call to your attention that we haven't addressed is, what do you do when a child is listed as a male and then separately as a female? How do you know which one is right? And the best strategy I can offer you is to check for marriage records for that child, because if the child was married to a female, he was almost certainly a male, and vice versa. Lots of times I use Ancestry for this purpose. If the person's spouse is not listed in FamilySearch, I go to Ancestry and say, hey, does anybody know who married a man named such and such with these dates and locations? And if somebody comes up with a spouse, I can almost say with certainty that the correct sex can now be chosen from the two that are offered. And the person with the incorrect sex, since they cannot be deleted, would actually be, their relationship to this family would be deleted. And what I would say in the message is, this child named Linda was actually a male. I have found his wife, who is ID number such and such. He is correctly listed as a male under ID number such and such in his family, and I am removing the child with the incorrect sex. Don't hesitate to make your message just a little bit long if it will provide detail that might make it possible for the people in FamilySearch to someday look at that child who is wandering around loose in the database without a home and say, oh, okay, we can safely delete this person because he has no relations. He was created incorrectly to begin with. Okay. Once more, I'm trying to emphasize how important it is to check for other marriages of this individual, because I wasted so many hours until I figured that out. All I had to do was go to his person page, which apparently I did not do, to discover that he had been married before to a lady named Mary Ann White in 1856. And since he married Sarah in 1872, and their child was born in 1869, she had to be a child of this mother, not this mother. So this is one of those situations where it's learn from my mistakes. Don't make the same dumb mistakes I've made. Now in this situation, this is that child I was telling you about. Ancestry actually offered a California death record that said she was born 14 October 1864. So of these three possible mothers, 1864, see, Josiah actually died, but I found out that Josiah actually died 13 September 1864. She was born less than a month later. And I would not have known that without that California death record that I found in Ancestry, which confirmed that her mother's maiden name was Daly Waha. I've got the right mother. So what we ended up here with is a family group that actually makes sense. And what we've discovered is that Josiah was husband 1, and husband 2 was Edward, of wife Sarah Catherine Daly. And that Edward was first married to Mary Ann White. To solve the problem of Eugenia, I had to learn from her descendants. To solve the problem of Catherine, I had to learn from records. I got all through with this, and I went back to each child's page to find other potential merges, and discovered more merges that needed to be made in order to continue to clean up this family. But ultimately it was done, and I think that those people are going to be waiting for me someday and wanting to thank me for straightening out their family group, because nobody else either noticed the problems or was willing to address them. And covered in tonight's class are basically three things. We've talked about strategies to identify possible errors in provided data for a family group. We've reviewed a step-by-step guide to fix the 5 most common relationship errors in family data that occur in family groups, whether it's a simple family group or a great big one. These are the same 5 common relationship errors you simply have to know how to fix. And we've reviewed my suggestions in a time-tested process for fixing multiple errors in data for a great big family group. The family groups that are most susceptible of these kinds of errors are blended families, When you've got four sets of parents with 12 kids, it's almost certain that some of those kids are listed with the wrong parents. So that is a clue that you might want to use when you're completing your homework assignment, which is before beginning our Class 9 next week, we ask you to consider using your new Logic 101 strategies to discover errors in family data for at least 3 of your ancestors' families. We suggest that you focus on families in the prevalent U.S. records period from 1840 to 1940 because, as I've said, you really want to be able to come up with some records to verify the changes you're making in family groups, particularly when ordinances are being affected. Note that blended families are often the ones that have the most significant data errors. Fix identified errors using your 2-page step-by-step guide as a resource, and then if sealing ordinances from between children and parents or between parents were affected, simply reserve and correct them. The good news is, in most cases, all you have to do is seal the children to the right parents, which can be done in a single session at the temple. Our next class in the series of 9 classes is about Ancestry.com, and that's because I have found Ancestry to be an ideal partner with FamilySearch, and I hope you will choose to learn just enough about it to decide for yourselves if it would be useful to you. The church certainly apparently thinks it would be useful to you because they have negotiated with Ancestry, which is a commercially owned program out of Provo, Utah, incidentally, that is totally subscriber-based, which means they have enough money to have state-of-the-art everything. Not that that means anything deprecating to FamilySearch, but it does mean that they can hire some of the best programmers in the industry and therefore give us search engines that have the capacity to find records we may not be able to locate readily in FamilySearch. They also possess a lot of records that FamilySearch does not seem to have. The bishop's wife in my ward came to me a couple weeks ago with a 40-year brick wall in her family, which was solved by finding 2 Alabama state censuses, North Carolina state censuses that were during the Civil War years, and made it possible for us to discover that the relatives of her great-grandfather she had been searching for 40 years were already in FamilySearch, and they just didn't know how to connect to them. Ancestry is a very valuable tool, if only to find historic records, but the other things that it can do for you are to allow you to back up your carefully researched data from FamilySearch. You know, in FamilySearch, anyone can change your information at any time. And to some of us, that's a little bit scary if we've got family groups that we've worked on very hard and found lots of records for. You may not want to you won't want to back up your whole family tree in Ancestry, but you might want to back up your closest 5 generations or something, especially the ones for whom you have records. It also is a wonderful place to discover missing ancestors in your tree. Remember in our previous class on finding people who might want to have the family ordinances completed for them, and I was talking about a very profitable strategy of discovering an ancestor who had reached adulthood and whose spouse was not located in FamilySearch. This is where I go to find those missing ancestors. I go to other people's public trees because somebody descended from that couple, and I want to know what they've learned about the man in my family who had a wife I've never discovered. And another wonderful attribute of Ancestry is that you will find hundreds, in many cases, of historic photos of your family groups. I have been paying $450 a year for this membership in Ancestry since 1998. You can multiply that, do the math on that, and figure out how much money I've used. And I say that every cent of that was well spent based simply on the historic photos we've gotten of our family groups. So that will be our class next week. It's just a 1-hour class. It's sort of an introduction to Ancestry, and I sure hope you will choose to participate in that one. Our Taming the FamilySearch Goliath series has been presented to help you learn how to use FamilySearch Family Tree with confidence and skill. You can download the classes and class handouts, as many of you have already discovered, from this website, which also now includes links to see those same classes on YouTube. So you would go to this website to get your handouts, click on the link, and it would take you directly to the YouTube video. The series of 9 classes was presented before a live audience in most cases. Due to weather conditions, that's not always been possible, and has been recorded between November 3rd, 2016 and January 26, 2017 by West Richland Stake in Washington of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The classes are free. We're very glad to offer you the information. We hope it's been a benefit. Our coordinator for this entire effort is Brother Mike Goodmanson, and he can be reached at this telephone number. We would especially love to hear from you if you have feedback for us. We're beginning to get some marvelous feedback from people in remote locations who just discovered the classes. We invite you to share this information with others that you may know, perhaps family members in different locations. Anyone is welcome to view the classes. We just want you to know, as a heads up, that we are considering offering a new set of classes beginning in February. These will be classes for people who are too busy to take on learning everything about FamilySearch and becoming full-fledged, highly skilled genealogists. Maybe they could conceivably devote an hour a week to family history. Let's share with them some of the ways that they could contribute to their family history in an hour a week and feel that they were making a really important contribution. These classes will be accessed through the same website, and we would like to offer our special thanks to the Richland Family History Center in Washington for their generous support and use of classroom facilities and equipment. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope it was helpful to you and wish you happy hunting. Good night.